I am not a guy who wants the next house. I don't want a boat. I don't want things at all.
Right.
I want to be recognized as somebody who grew and sold a company. I want to be recognized as somebody who helped a lot of people along the way. I want to be recognized as a kingmaker, not a king.
Welcome to The Deep Dark, a business podcast where we ask seasoned minds to excavate their history, pulling out the best insights, the hardest moments, and yes, golden epiphanies. Somewhere in the stories and laughs, we all get a little smarter and feel a little better about our own business ventures. Remember, if it didn't hurt, it doesn't count. Your hosts are Chris Lyon and Tim Douglas at the Fidelis Creative Agency. So strap in and get ready as we plunge once again into The Deep Dark.
Have you ever heard of the term self-made and wondered what the phrase exactly means? Enter Lamar Romero, founder and chief executive dragon at Higher Dragons. Higher Dragons manages beverage tastings and brand activations nationwide. Lamar is self-made. Partnered with his spouse, they were able to bootstrap and build a multi-million-dollar business. This episode helps remind us that the road to success is tough, but all things are possible if you put your mind to it. So buckle up for the Deep Dark podcast.
Hey everybody, my name is Lamar Romero with Higher Dragons, and I'm here to talk to you on the Deep Dark.
Awesome. So good to have you, Lamar. As we had talked to before, as we talked to each other before, we have some points of connection I won't go deep into, but it's nice to have another South Texas guy. We seem to talk in stories in South Texas, so these really come out good as that happens. So, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself so the audience gets to know you.
Sure. So we have a company called Higher Dragons. It's been around for about 11 years. I myself, before this company, started out in high tech. I went to Texas A&M, graduated in 1998. Went to a small computer company in Round Rock called Dell. Soon after that, spent 10 years off and on and being a cog in the wheel, badge number 26147 there at Dell Computers. It was a great start, great place to kind of get my teeth wet and learn a lot about systems and I learned a ton about systems, Dell. And then from 2008, went on a journey to try to figure out who I was, who I wanted to be. I'd already quit Dell a couple of times, and I told myself if I went back to Dell a third time, because it was easy to go back, that I would have failed at finding who I am. Did some entrepreneurial pursuits here and there in those kind of medium years, but then ended up with Higher Dragons, and this has been an 11-year endeavor where we've basically bootstrapped it from nothing to recently a $2.3 million business and a recipient of the Aggie 100. So
Awesome.
Really happy to be where we're at today.
Well, I want to tell you that you have one of the coolest websites. Building websites as we do here, often we critique companies based upon their website, but your website is enticing, man. I can sit there and just stare at that animation with those dragons for quite a while. It's a lot of fun. So what exactly does Higher Dragons do?
Well, the website designer for us is our co-founder, Laura Valentino Romero, and I'll make sure to relay your great words to her.
Yeah.
She did a fantastic job on that website. So basically, the heart of what we do, we're a temporary staffing agency. That's just the 1 second version of it. But the long of it is we hire brand ambassadors, we educate them, we find their passion, we put them out to work in the field at tastings at either liquor stores or grocery stores, usually 3-hour gigs, pay them pretty darn well. And they're there to pour drinks and tell stories of the clients that we represent. So in 3 minutes, consumers should be able to walk up and identify and know the story of that brand and want to take it home, not only in their hands, but in their minds and their hearts as well.
Wow. How did you come up with this idea? What were you doing when you said, I think we need to go out there and start to sell booze? Really? I mean, at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. I mean, I started my career in high tech. I came out of A&M with a hybrid engineering and business degree that's called industrial distribution.
Right.
Went to Dell. Never million years would have figured I'd be running a company that did this. But my wife, who was working at a Mexican restaurant at the time, met a tequilero who came in the door one day and said, "Hey, I really need help promoting my tequila." I was with a Y Combinator startup at the time called Unwavering. I was the oldest guy there at like 35 years old. And the company was having a downswing, and I knew I was about to be laid off. Um, she came to me with this idea. We tried this tequila. It's really sweet, easy to drink. And I thought, oh God, yeah, I could sell the shit out of this. So we basically decided to help this tequiliero grow his business. We did it in a very entrepreneurial and functional way. We basically hung out at liquor stores on the weekends, and in doing that, just learned a lot about the industry because we were always in the tequila aisle promoting. She'd be at one store, I'd be at the other. We'd be competing. I'd call her up and say, "Hey, I've sold 25 bottles," and she'd be like, "I sold 30." Oh shit! So we were always kind of competing that way, and we made this tequila the #1 premium selling tequila in Austin, Texas, at
Wow.
Specs in 2011 over Patron.
Really?
For that year, for that 1 year, tequila basically nobody had ever heard of, and it's because we just worked liquor aisles of all 8 of the stores here in Austin, rotating to different stores and working them. We did that for about a year. That was a handshake agreement with this guy. I thought he was going to give me some ownership. I thought there'd be some other things that came about it. None of that seemed to materialize. Uh, I was at a hard road. Do I go back to tech?
Mm,
Do I, what do I do now? When we were at these stores and when we were in the aisles hand selling, and you'd run into all these tasters at barrels tasting products, we realized very quickly that many of these people didn't know anything about the brands that they were representing.
wow.
They were there. It was a job,
Yeah.
and you know, most of the time back then it was a pretty face. And I get it. I mean, I like a pretty face as much as the next guy. But I thought, when I told Laura, we talked about it, I said, if we ever get in this business, I want to change this. I want to take all the stuff I learned about sales at Dell. I want to, educate these people. I want to empower them to go out and have
Mm,
a good time and do a great job. And that's what we did. We did it very slowly. The company was called Dragon Spirits Marketing, which you saw on the Higher Dragons website. Was actually a redesign of our website. I think that website's about a year old now.
okay.
But we started out with Dragon Spirits Marketing, and I wanted a powerful name to say that we weren't, you know, this model shop or that model shop. Almost every other name of a tasting company had models in it. And I was like, no, we're going to just be something completely different. Of course, this is also corresponding with Game of Thrones growth as
Right.
well.
Right.
Um,
I could see the resemblance. I could.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, and I'm a gamer and I'm a geek. So, and a fantasy nerd. So we we started out like, I was only in Austin where I live. Um, I was destitute. I used my whole Dell 401k to help this other guy build his business. And I said, well, I got to go do something. So I drove for Uber and Lyft, part time. My wife
Love that.
went to go work at Specs at the liquor store. The Specs had gotten to know us at this time, and they loved us. So they were happy to get her, not me. They're like, yeah, she wants a job. You will have to think about, but her, she's hired now.
Yeah.
So she got an
I
instant
love
job
that.
as a floor walker, as a liquor rep. And we started with one client. I did every tasting myself. I've done over 1,000 tastings. I think I'm the only agency owners even done one tasting of all my competitors, but I'm definitely the only one that's done over 1,000.
You know what
Um,
I love about this is the fact that a lot of entrepreneurs, as they start, they don't want to let you in the fact that they bootstrapped in the hard part at the beginning, right? That seems to be a common sentiment when we have um, entrepreneurs and startup owners in here, is that they love to talk to you about the bougie good part at the end,
oh
when money
no,
is turning. But man,
no.
what a deal! So y'all literally bootstrapping it. You're not
I
going
mean,
out
it
for
it was a
yeah.
grind, brother. It was a grind. I mean, I'm jealous, envious of these smarter people that can start a company and they get capital right away, and
Mm-hmm.
they either go and succeed or they don't, right? 85% of them don't, but um, we certainly did it the hard way.
Right.
I had a mortgage. I had my house. I had a roommate move in, rent a room.
Whatever
I
it
mean,
took.
whatever it took, man. We scratched. We
Yeah.
scratched. I
Yeah.
know what it is to scratch. And so we got it to a point where, it was kind of a 1-2 punch. Somebody would walk into the big liquor store specs and say, "Oh, we really need a tasting agency." And my wife would be like, "Oh, I got a perfect recommendation for you." So one client became two, two became three. And at the time I would have sessions on Sundays here at my house and invite all these random people that would answer Craigslist ads, and I would do an in-house training for them,
Wow.
literally.
Yeah.
Um, and that's how we built our first bunch of dragons. Our brand ambassadors that we affectionately call dragons. And we grinded like that for a good 3 or 4 years. Great growth,
Wow.
200% growth, 500% growth, 1,000% growth. We went from like 10,000 revenue to like 50,000 revenue. But
Yeah,
but it
that's good.
and then slowly hiring my first employee still with me. She's our board director and owns a percentage of the company and X percentage of the company, and just hiring people here and there to kind of help us with that growth.
So I've got to
Um,
ask, as this growth's coming along, where do you think from inside you this hustle came from? Where the drive to be able to bootstrap that and get it going, and because year 3 or 4, usually if you're at 50K, on your revenue and you're looking at
yeah.
this, usually many people at that point in time, that bell curve of diminishing returns about to hit in that entrepreneurial slope, and you're
Oh
like, all
man.
right, I got to go find a job. How did
Even
that work out?
at year 6 or 7, I joined EO Accelerator, and you had to have at least 250,000 in revenue. But I knew the guy, and so he let me in at 150.
Mm,
And I remember talking to a mentor like a year later, and she's like, "It's okay, Lamar. You just quit, shut down, and go do something else."
right.
And I remember thinking, you know, like you of all people are going to tell me this?
Yeah.
But she was right. She was absolutely right. I should have probably cut down and spun out. But
Uh-huh.
what is in me? That I guess the answer to your question is the fear of failure. I didn't want to fail.
Right.
I just didn't
Yeah.
want to fail.
I
And I
love that.
knew we had a great product. I knew I had the pride that went into this to say, man, when a brand hires us, they know they're going to get the best representation they can.
Right.
It's not perfect. And there's issues and there's problems but it's way better than the other guys, and the
Right.
price is about the same. So and slowly we grew and we grew and we grew, and um, the first leap of faith for me was in 2018. I decided, well, I had to go big or go home. We had to have our first child. We waited late in life. I'm older, and I have a 7 and 5-year-old at the time of this recording here. And I said, well, I can't live on the chicken scratch. I got to do something different.
Right.
And so I got an SBA loan with a house. One of the good things I did at Dell is I had a couple of houses that I bought along the way. So I collateralized one of those houses and got the SBA loan. And that's when we built the internal Dragon Engagement Network, or the Dragon's Den for short, the actual management system of everything that we did. Instead of using all these third-party software tools,
Mm-hmm.
we integrated that and started creating our own application that made us way more efficient. And then we started scaling with bigger businesses, and that
Brilliant.
was the beginning of our scale.
Brilliant. I think there's something culturally to it as well. As we talked about before we started recording, you and I are from like location. And in that like location, it's funny because, by the way, within our shop there's 3 of us that are from that area.
Oh
And
wow.
so as that happens, we have often talked about the hustle that comes from that geography, because in that geography, either you work for a big oil company, refineries, etc., but everybody else, they work for themselves. And there's just something there as you start to look at it that, I don't know, culturally, it's in us, right? And you figure out a
You know
way.
what? That's funny. That's good. I never really thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah, it's a cultural piece, and
And let's
we
just say it,
lovingly.
South Texas, baby. Go South
It's South
Texas.
Texas. We call it the Corpus Christi hustle around here.
Yeah,
Especially when things are coming around, you find a different way. You find how you're going to scale. You find what the difference is. You figure out, hey, you know what? I think that if it's not nailed down, things are tough, but we'll sell it and we'll be all right, right? And you
yeah.
just continue. But I love to hear it because, wow, there's just something just really, really, lack of a better term, exciting when somebody has the grit to be able to get through the hard times, knowing that it's going to get better and to stick to it. That's that fear of failure, right? And it's possible, and that is good news to a lot of our listeners. We have a lot of entrepreneurial companies,
Good,
that are
good.
5 to 10 year mark here, and they're doing better, and things are coming around, and they're learning, why marketing works for them. But on the other side, it's the magic of that individual. You just got to say that you got to give it to them.
It
Yeah.
is. It's and it's a lot of a function of just how long you can
Mm,
endure the grind.
sure.
Excuse me for a second. Let me, in case you hear that. Um, you know, it's you have to ask yourself, are things getting better? Am I taking 10 steps forward and 9 steps back?
Right.
Right? It's not just 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes I feel like I've leapfrogged and almost fallen back to the point where I leapfrogged from.
Yeah.
But every year it's gotten better, and I've gotten more comfortable. And this kind of slow growth, I mean, 11-year growth to get to 2.3 million, um, it's taught me a lot about myself. And
Absolutely.
so I think everybody looks at, I want to be this success because I want
Hmm.
the house, I want the money, I want the vacation. But man, this journey has taught me so much about myself.
Right.
How to be a better leader, how to be a better father, a better communicator, a better friend. Um, that to me is indispensable. Whether I fail or succeed tomorrow,
Hmm.
this is wherever I go next. I take all of that with me.
Absolutely.
So,
It's humbling, isn't it?
it's
Totally.
it is. I mean, it has its value. Is my point. Like
Hmm.
so many people would say, "Oh, that sounds horrible to grind for 11 years and get to that point," but it has its value, and it's kind of hard to recognize that value until you've actually kind of done it.
Right.
So, and then maybe it's not a value for some people at all, but for me, that's been the value of all this, is seeing and being able to grow in such a way where I don't feel like I'm stepping on top of people
Mm,
to get to the next hill.
right.
Right?
Right.
I'm taking a climb up, and then I'm extending an arm, and I'm yanking up the guy with me and saying, "All right, help me get to the next spot now." So that's been something that's been gratifying about the journey as well.
What was so in this journey? It sounds like you did a lot of this between you and your wife, and you stuck together and you did that. Was there a person you met in this journey that helped you through it, that said, "Hey, do this next or do that next"? Have you thought about? Was there that pivotal handshake that happened in your journey?
No, I'd say there's been a culmination of a lot of folks who have helped me in some way
Yeah.
along the journey. I mean, the most pivotal person has been my wife, who's endured and been on this journey along with me. There's just not very many husband wife teams
No,
out
there's
there
not. Not that
that
not that make it. Yeah.
that make it, right. And
Right.
that we've been together for 21 years now and built this business together for 11. um Now she's taken breaks in between because childbearing and
Sure.
and getting other jobs. Like she got a couple of jobs during some of those years when she left Specs that brought in the bread that helped us get
Hmm.
to the kind of the next point. But really it's been her and her support and really just every now and then just the right kick in the ass to say, hey, you know get up and get to the next step faster.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Love it.
I've noticed that for me, the biggest difficulty to like Uber growth has actually been ambition.
Mm,
Like I am not a guy who wants the next house. I don't want a boat. I don't want things at all.
right.
I want to be recognized as somebody who grew and sold a company. I want to be recognized as somebody who helped a lot of people along the way. I want to be recognized as a king maker, not a king.
Mm,
But I don't want the boat and I don't want the house and I don't want. And so sometimes I'm just like, hey, things are going along just fine.
Right.
And I want to coast for a little bit. I
I love
want
it.
to breathe and not
Yeah. Yeah.
grind.
Right.
And that is actually sometimes my biggest enemy. Like I've got to get that part out of the way so that I can get to the next step.
But there's a lot of wisdom to that. Being from where we are, there's that old South Texas fisherman fable, the parable there. Do you know what I'm talking about? About where the fisherman is sitting on the dock and he's watching the sun go down. And the guy comes up and says, "Hey, what's this in front of you?" He says, "It's my boat." And he says, "Well, how's business?" He said, "Well, I caught my limit today and sold it. I'm good to go." And they come and the guy says, "Well, hey, check it out. I'm a VC and I think you're doing great. And I just want to, why don't we get
I've
you to
read this
two
parable.
boats? Right? Why don't we get you to three boats? And then we can start a cannery and we can we'll be selling fish like mad and we'll just be so rich." And the fisherman says, "Well, what's the ultimate goal?" And he says, "Well, ultimate goal is so you can sit, here and look at the sun go down and be able to enjoy your time on the water." And he says, "Well, that's what I'm doing." Right. I'm happy where I'm at. Right. I'm making a living. I'm
I
already
love
got
that
it going on.
parable. Yes,
But
once you started getting into it, I started recognizing it. And there's some
yeah,
truth to it, right?
there's some
Like,
truth. Yeah.
like I look at Elon Musk and he's definitely one of the guys that. In fact, I
Uh-huh.
just bought my first Tesla. Like I bought a used Tesla because Hertz got rid of them. They
Yes, they did.
1/3 of their EV fleets. I
Yeah.
went to Hertz used car sales. I got one for 25,000 for a 2022 Tesla, the base model, right?
Yeah.
I I was on the waiting list for this car. I'd sent them $1,000, but when it came out, I couldn't afford it. And so I was like, nope, just send me my $1,000 back. After 2 years, I waited 2 years to get my $1,000 back interest free. So I got this Tesla, and I think about all the great things that's in this car. But to be
Mm,
a person like Elon or any other great,
right.
great, great entrepreneur as we identify them here in the United States, the sacrifices those guys make, the things that they
Absolutely.
have to, the things that they have to deal with on a daily basis. We all
Mm-hmm.
we all see the glory of it. They're sitting on $1 billion, they can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter if they got a billion or two or five or 10. They want more. Their
Right.
their ambitions are wild, right? And I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad. I'm just saying everybody's ambition level should be where it needs to be so that you can be happy.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what I'm driving towards happiness. I want to sell
Sure.
this company. I want all my employees have a piece of the company. I want them all to
Great.
get their fair share or more. I want to get my fair share, and then I want to chill out for about 6 months, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do next. But
There you go. Truly
you know,
entrepreneurial spirit there. Well,
yeah,
so so I heard you say it. So, you're building to sell, which is, having an exit strategy is always important, especially today. How far down the line are you from that?
I'm thinking 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
We're actually going to. We haven't raised a whole bunch of capital along the way. I did a WeFunder. I did crowdfunding a couple of years ago. Raised $377,000 on WeFunder, which is fairly successful for a service company.
Sure.
Um, we got a $500,000 EIDL loan, which was awesome. Thank you,
Sure.
government. 3.75% interest is great.
Yep.
But that was all real capital we raised, besides the SBA loan. And so we're looking to raise 3 million this year. We've got some real grandiose plans to as to your fish parable,
Mm-hmm.
to buy 3 or 4 more boats and probably not going to own the cannery, but we need 3 or 4 more boats
Yeah.
because we do see an opportunity to scale and we do see an opportunity to grow. And I do see an opportunity to basically exit this company at a high valuation within 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that looking at it. There's some companies, there's two different types of CEOs that we find. We find the legacy CEO who thinks that they're going to give it to their children. Many times that comes out that it doesn't work out right because their children want to do other things. And then the other side is those that are looking for that exit strategy. And lo and behold, it's not that they stop being an entrepreneur. It's just that they go do something else, right? And they build another one and they keep building another one. And, back to rich dad, poor dad, they just continue doing it. And it turns out good in the end. So, man, I applaud you on that. That's awesome. It seems like you've really, you know, that education you got at A&M was great, but probably doesn't compare to the last 11 years doing what you've been doing there.
And honestly, the education at A&M does not compare at all.
Yeah.
I, I'm going to be one of the few dads going to be like, you want to go to school, kid? Cool.
Uh-huh.
Go to school or don't go to school. You want to start a business? Here, let dad help you out a little bit, but you better show me a damn good business plan first. I ain't giving you shit.
That's right. Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
the school that has taught me the most is
Yeah.
this journey.
Yeah, but it's a good journey and it's a great journey. The thing that was hardest for me as I go through this journey was staying up night trying to figure out how I was going to make payroll during COVID. I'll never forget that time and how hard that was, and just thinking about got families to feed. It is not for the faint of heart. It sure is not.
COVID was a shitty time, man. We were out of
Yeah.
business for 6 months.
Yeah. But you continued. You continued.
We
So
did. We prevailed.
give us some wisdom here, man. So we've been talking for about a half an hour, and I try not to hold you for too long, but give us some wisdom. What do the crowd of entrepreneurs that we have that listen to this, and even the business folks, what is the one piece of knowledge you have that has made the difference, that every day you remember? Is there something wise that we can take with us?
For me, it's do good by the people you work with and communicate and treat them right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, ultimately, as I've let go of all the different functions of the company that I've done,
Mm-hmm.
we've got 17 employees now. I'm truly in a place now where I can work on the business, not in the business. If I'm away from my email for a day, I don't freak out like I did over the last 30 years of my professional life. That has been a huge blessing, but it has been a creation of my design
Mm-hmm.
to empower and trust the folks that I work with and get the hell out of their way and let them do their jobs.
Right.
It's something that I still struggle with a little bit. I mean, I think if you pulled each one of them, they would have different levels of that. But this is still my baby. This company is still
Sure.
my baby. It's my third kid. It was my first kid actually. So that has been something that's really the books that I've read and the classes that I've taken through EO Accelerator, or I was in this Goldman
Mm.
Sachs program as well that helped with a few business teachings, have really helped me put that together and making sure that I've got the right people in the right seats.
Right.
That's my wisdom for scaling. My wisdom for beginning is if your heart tells you what you're doing every day is right, then do it. And don't listen to anything else. Don't listen to
Yeah.
the voice in your head telling you, well, if I did something different, we'd be able to go and go to that vacation or whatever. I think the grind's good. I wish everybody was forced to do the grind. I wish that nobody could raise capital on their very first venture,
Yeah. That's
right?
true. I love that. Yeah.
But it's the grind has definitely taught me a lot of things, and it's taught me how to appreciate things, so that I
Mm-hmm.
know on the other side of this, when maybe there is the time comes and I've got more money I know what to do with, I'll appreciate it a hell of a lot more, and I'll be able to put it to better use, and I won't buy stupid shit with it. Um, and
Yeah.
and that's going to
Yeah.
be, that this process will teach me that into the future. I can already foresee that into the future.
Yeah.
So, but treat people right and communicate. Learn how to be an effective communicator. Read whatever book you need to read. I don't have anything that I can recommend actually when it comes to that. That was just kind of like that's
Mm-hmm.
always just been my inbred strength,
Right.
was learning how to communicate. But it's definitely
Yeah,
helped
we
a lot
we
as
we
we've
tell
gone
a
on the
lot of
journey.
our clients that your plan is only as good as your ability to communicate the strategy. And that goes back to brand building at the end. Your ability to communicate that strategy really is huge. Even if you have great ideas and great tools, but if you can't get it across, nobody's buying. That trust isn't going to be there. You're going to stay invisible. So that's we always go back to that for sure. Well, how do people find you? What's your web address?
Yeah, we are
There you go.
hiredragons.com. Very easy to
Hired.
find. We pour drinks and tell stories. And then the other side of that, if you want to be a dragon, just remember, always be yourself unless you can be a dragon.com.
Gotcha.
We
Love it.
own the URL for Be a Dragon, and that's how our brand ambassadors find us.
You have a great radio voice, man. I love that. Yeah, you
So
put
do
that
you.
inflection just the right place. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it takes you back in memories, right? C101 rocks. But yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
excellent, my friend. That was excellent.
Absolutely. Hey, well, hey, thanks for your time. I don't want to hold you for too long, but it was, man, it's just a pleasure. I love your energy, and I'm thankful that I got to meet you today.
Well, you too, Chris Lyons. Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you.
All right, cool.